Good evening, my name is Brad Lev. I'm the host and founder of Studio Gourmet. Tonight we have an amazing show with Mark Dommen, the chef partner from One Market Restaurant located by the Embarcadero in San Francisco. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're going to be demonstrating next?
Bacon wrapped pork tenderloin. It's one of my signature dishes at the restaurant, and then you're going to have little crab cakes, which is another dish that we do really well. So.
What were your thoughts on walking into a restaurant that's already been established for a while? Did you feel like you had to reinvent it? Did you wanted to stay with what it had? What was your kind of picture for that?
Well, I had really good feedback on the food that I was doing at Julia's Kitchen, and so I knew that if I would continue to do that, or just stick with great ingredients, good techniques, and good flavor combinations, that it would work. And so that was my first goal, was to just keep those same basic principles that work across the board. You get the best ingredients you possibly can, don't screw them up, apply some great techniques or good techniques to them, and then in some really good flavor combinations, and it should work out.
In the food business a long time. While I was there, I actually started Studio Gourmet as kind of like just a fun activity. And when I moved back here to San Francisco, I thought it would be a great place to start it up again. And the reason why I really do it is because, to me, chefs are artists. They really have a passion for their food, and the plate, to me, is the canvas. And the ingredients that they have, the things that they use, are equal to their paintbrushes, and it's really, for me, amazing to be able to watch these individuals do the things that they do. But more importantly, every chef has a different background. They have their personal taste, where they're from, their influences, and that's what makes them all individual. Each chef has a different style, and that's what we're here to learn about, is why they do the things that they do. I don't really talk about the food, I talk about them as the people and where they're from, and their stories and their experiences, and that's where they are today. So tell us about when you were a child, the household of Mark, the family, the dinners, running around the yard, what kind of...
Well, we grew up, I was born in San Francisco. We lived in San Francisco until I was in the second grade, and then we moved to Windsor, which is between Hillsburg and Santa Rosa, which then was really, very rural, very country. And so, it was, we raised animals, we had a vegetable garden, we had chickens, rabbits, we'd raise pigs sometimes, sheep sometimes, we always had a steer. So we were doing kind of the whole thing, the whole cool farm to table thing even before it was that. And even growing up, it was like, I didn't even understand why we were doing it, because everybody else got their vegetables from the grocery store, and why do we have to grow our own? But it ends up, it laid some really important principles, in my life, and that now just seem naturally fit for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And at the time I didn't know that, so it was kind of cool. It was a country. We grew up on 20 acres. 18 of it is grapevines, and then we always had a vegetable garden. We always had animals, so it was fun. So when I was 16, my father made me get a job to pay for my gas in the car, because I turned 16 on a Saturday, and on Monday I got my driver's license. Because again, living in the country, my parents were tired of driving me around, so I needed to drive. So I got a job, and I was doing dishes, and then by the end of the summer I was working in the pantry, and then I had to go to school, so I had to quit. And then And then the next summer I started doing it again, and then again. So it comes back to time to graduate high school, and my parents are like, okay, what are you going to do with yourselves? You got to make a decision. What are you going to do, right? And they didn't really talk about college or anything like that. It was like more of learning that trade, that skill. So I was like, okay, I'm cooking. I'm pretty good at it. I'm going to do this. And then the choices were to try and go to Switzerland. I'm a dual citizen, so I could live and work in Switzerland if I wanted to. So I could go to Switzerland if I wanted to and do an apprenticeship, or I could stay here and go to culinary school. I wanted to stay here and go to culinary school because I wanted to live in the big city. So I moved to San Francisco, went to the CCA, and then it was time to do an externship. I got my externship at Fleur de Lis, and that sort of put everything into perspective.
So after you finished school, or when you were going through that process to get your jobs, were you looking at other places, or were you only looking at Fleur de Lis? Or?
Well, I did my externship, and then it was time to graduate. And right before I was about to graduate, Hubert called me and said, "Look, he still has very little turnover. It's amazing how long people stay with him." So as I was about to graduate, he called me and said he had somebody leaving. Would I like a job? And I jumped on it. Then you always constantly hear about New York, right? Are you good enough to work in New York? Am I good enough to work in New York? So I decided to move to New York.
Did you know anyone when you moved there?
I didn't. I went and I interviewed. So I stopped in and talked to Hubert, and he was like, "Well, the best thing you could do if you go to New York, the best thing you could do is work for Grey Coons." He goes, "That would be the best for you." So I went and I interviewed. I took a trip. And again, same thing at Les Banas, there was very little turnover. I also talked to David Burke at Park Avenue Cafe, and he was like, "Yeah, anytime you want to come, you have a job." So I made plans to move. I started working at Park Avenue Cafe. Wasn't the kitchen environment that I really liked, so I went back and reconnected with Grey Coons.
Why?
I don't know. It was a tough kitchen in New York, and a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. I wasn't used to that. I am now.
So the real chefs come out in New York.
Some of them, yeah. You learn to grow a thick skin, especially coming from the Bay Area. You learn to grow a thick skin when you're in New York, and I recommend it for anybody to, any young cook should work in New York.
Originally, what was their goal for it? What were they trying to do?
Their goal was to combine the arts, wine, and food, because so many times it's combined and you have this wonderful experience with all three together. And I think there was a little bit of a misguidance there. But yeah, the cool thing was the restaurant there was named Julia's Kitchen. It was named after Julia Child. And it was the only time she's ever let her name be used for something like that. And
you were the executive chef there?
Yeah, I was the opening chef, and got to cook for Julia about a half a dozen times. And
what did you make for her?
Well, we did one of her the best story I like is we did one of her 90th birthday celebrations there, which was, she basically picked the menu of things she wanted. It was like a vichyssoise, it was a monkfish, and then the next day she came in and she wanted a hamburger.
Cook for anyone alive or anyone that's dead. You said anyone that's alive was Freddie Girardet?
Girardet. Yeah.
And you said that if you could cook for anyone that was passed away, it was James Beard. So why would you cook for these individuals, and what would you think you would prepare for them?
What I'd prepare, I don't know, but Freddie Girardet was the big influence on Grey Coons, and Grey Coons was the big influence on me. So I think it would be very cool to cook for him. And I've had the opportunity to cook for some great chefs. I've cooked for Alain Ducasse. At Copia, I had the opportunity to cook for Ferran Adria, so that's why some of those aren't in there. But I think Freddie Girardet, his approach to food, and he's another one of these guys that approached it with a lot of perfection. I think it would be pretty cool to cook for him and get his feedback and see what he thought. James Beard, because I had the opportunity to cook for Julia Child, and it would be somebody that I'd really respect what they thought, and it would be a lot of fun to cook for them.
You said that a couple of your most memorable meals was in '96, 2000. What do you think defines when they ask you what is your most incredible, most memorable meal, and you mentioned these three places? Why what made those differentiate from another meal that you had in the past, or what made those so special?
Some of them were first. Some of them were like Arzak was a first. That was the first time. That was my first Michelin 3-star experience, and just the precision that went into it, and the flavors. You know, I didn't really understand what a Michelin 3-star experience would be or was. So that left a lasting impression. What were the other two that one of them was Pierre Gagné.
Yeah.
Because that one I can still taste the food from that.
One in Spain, El Bulli.
Oh, El Bulli also. Well, El Bulli, everybody knows about El Bulli, right? And that was, to me, so that was where Arzak was very formal.
They were both lunches, which I thought was interesting too.
Well, that's because I couldn't get in at dinner. So at El Bulli, I came driving up. When I went to Barcelona, I rented a car specifically to go there. I went driving up, and I was, you know, most Michelin 3-star restaurants, you come in a coat and a tie. I was in a suit and a tie, and I pulled in a little early, and there was somebody already waiting in the parking lot, and he had shorts on and just a button-down shirt. And I was like, whoa, really? So I took off my tie and went in with my sleeves rolled up. And it was one of the most relaxing 3-star experiences, aside from the food. And 2000, you know, that was 11 years ago. So, you know, all the food that he had done up to then was in my tasting menu. And so, you know, it was pretty awesome. You're sitting outside on the patio, you got the little water in front of you, you're drinking cocktails, and you're, you know, enjoying, you know, some of them were just single bites, some of them were a little larger, some of the courses, and I think it was 18 courses later, and you know, it just leaves this lasting impression on you. I was bummed that I couldn't try it one more time before he closed, because it would have been awesome to see the difference in 10 years. And then Pierre Gagné was, you know, that was Paris, and, you know, very formal also. But again, you know, his flavor combinations were pretty incredible. So left another lasting impression.
Okay. So you were actually runner-up, I believe, in the sexiest chefs for San Francisco.
Yeah.
Lost to David Barzigan.
Yeah.
So being in the limelight of things like that, how do you think that influences the culinary scene in San Francisco and kind of all over? Now that the Food Network is so prominent, there's TV shows everywhere about food. How do you think that impacts chefs on a regular day doing what they're trying to do, if any?
I mean, I think you know that is like stuff that happens on the side. I think, you know, you still have to produce a great product at the end of the day. You still have to go in, you still have to cook, and you still have to produce something that people are going to love. If you don't do that, then, you know, that other stuff isn't going to happen. And sometimes it's a little bit of a distraction. That you know, that was a little bit of a distraction, but but you know, it's fun. It's fun nonetheless, and you know, it gets your name out there. Part of the process now is getting your name out there as much as possible.
Do you think the whole social media, Facebook, Twitter, is a good impact or a hindrance, or how do you think that affects?
I think it's a great impact. You know, you know, you just. Especially Twitter. I like Twitter better than Facebook because you get, you know, it doesn't take too long. You can send your little messages, and you know, it's a lot of fun. And it's interesting to see what people respond to most.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of fun.
Things that you said over the years that actually you learned from Hubert Keller. One of the things that you learned from Hubert Keller was dedication, precision, and to treat your staff well. So what do you think, or what do you want your staff to learn from you as being the chef partner moving forward? Or what do you try to install on them?
Well, I'd like them to, I mean, all those things. You know, I think treating your staff well, we all work hard, and so, you know, I really think it's important to treat your staff well, especially, not especially, but, you know, cooks in general, they don't make a lot of money. So you want to make sure that, you know, while they're there, they're taken care of. You know, that they don't have any distractions from other things that are going on in the restaurant. You know, and just treating them with a lot of respect. You can't, you know, I can't, I'm only one person, and that restaurant takes a lot of people to make it go. And so everybody has an integral part, and everybody's equally important. Because if not, you know, once you're one person, two people down, suddenly the wheels stop moving, and it's you know, it comes to a grinding halt. And that's a big restaurant.
Looking back at where you are today, from when you were 16 years old doing the dishes, do you think you would have taken that same path, or would you have maybe gone a different route? Even though your parents wanted you to have the trade, but now you know where you are today, would you have still stayed that same path and gone through what you've done?
Well, if I knew where I'd be, yeah, I kind of enjoy where I'm at right now, and it's a lot of fun. And you know, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy cooking. So I would, yeah. You know, it's. I mean, there's other things that maybe I would do, but you know,
Fireman?
yeah, you know. I love playing with fire, so you know.
What advice would you give to all the young, blooming chefs out there?
It's, you know, it's a craft, it's a skill, and you know, it takes time to develop that skill. It just doesn't happen from one day to the next, and you do it through repetition. So the more you do things, the more comfortable you get, and then you start building on skill. You know, you start with a good foundation, you start building on it, and it just takes time. And at some point, you're very comfortable with all those skills, and then you know, cooking becomes a lot of fun. And you know, so it takes time. To rush it is, I think, is sometimes some young kids or younger people come out of culinary school and they want to rush becoming a chef, and I think that's, you know, where you lose a lot of potential, where you can, you know, develop some great skills.
I got a few closing questions for you. First of all, one word that describes yourself.
Intense.
Intense?
Yeah. At work. At home.
Tell us something about yourself that we can't find on Google or the internet or in a book or something.
Oh, good question. You know, I don't know, on Google or I don't know. My family is probably the most important thing to me. You know, my girls, my wife. You know, that's why I commute every day to the city. So
it's a trek.
Yeah.
What is your worst day?
Well, right now, a bad day is usually, you know, when the commute is bad. You know, it all comes down to commuting. A bad day is just, you know,
Not a bad day, the worst day.
The worst day?
Yeah.
The worst day was when my father passed away. That was probably my worst day ever. So, which is what happened unexpectedly, and you can't prepare for that. So,
Yeah.
you
Sorry.
know, that's all right.
What was your best day?
Best day was when my two girls were born. Oh, and when I got married.
Two best days.
Yeah.
I'll give you two best days. The last question I have for you is salt or pepper?
Salt.
Salt.
No question about it. I'm Mark Dommen. I'm the chef partner at One Market Restaurant here in San Francisco. And Friday, Saturday nights, we feature a 3-course menu based on a whole animal. We call it the Weekly Beast. Changes every week, so come check us out. The menus are on our website, www.onemarket.com.
Hey guys, just want to say thank you to everyone that came out tonight. I also want to say thank you to Chef Mark Dommen from One Market, Circolo, Chopin Vodka, Urban Spoon, and everyone else that attended the show tonight. I hope you had a great evening. And check out Studio Gourmet SF for all our future events. Thank you very much.